Today, consumer confidence falling to a 7-month low. What are people concerned about? The energy crisis continues in Europe and China. One Chinese official is desperate for more coal imports. And Ford announcing its largest manufacturing investment ever. It says it will lead America's transition to electric vehicles. That and much more coming up on NTD Business. Good evening. Great to have you with us. I'm Paul Graney. You might be feeling it, but consumer confidence fell again in September. That's the third straight month. It's now at its lowest level since February. The spread of the Delta variant is a factor putting a damper on sentiment. Another is inflation. Rising prices have emerged as a key concern amid the economic recovery. Inflation has risen far faster than wages and eroded the buying power of Americans. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell told a Senate hearing today that inflation has proven a bigger and longer-lasting problem than expected, but at the same time he expressed confidence that once supply chain bottlenecks are resolved, inflation would fall again. But some economists say the Fed's easy money policies and unprecedented government spending will keep inflation high. And at Wall Street today, stocks ended sharply lower. It's a broad sell-off on Wall Street. The Nasdaq saw its biggest one-day percentage drop since March, down 2.8%. S&P 500 lost 90 points, about 2%, its biggest drop since May. The Dow fell about 570 points today, over 1.5%. And Europe's energy crisis is prompting some countries to reconsider opening coal plants and gas fields. Poland's already done it. One investment manager says the shift is likely to continue too. NTD's Patrick Hayden in London has the details.
Europe's energy crisis is causing countries to revert to fossil fuels. Poland has already reopened a coal plant despite potential daily fines from the European Union. And the Dutch government is considering reopening one of its gas fields to combat the supply crunch. One UK investment manager says there is opportunity for commodity investments now.
The market's volatile, but if you can steer through the short-term volatility, I think people are going to make significant profits from investing in the commodities, real assets, energy space over the next 5 years.
Price says with bigger companies divesting from oil and gas, there is a space for well-run smaller companies.
ESG, environmental and social governance, which is the latest iteration of sort of woke culture. The rise of the ESG lobby has meant that a lot of these commodity companies are cheap because the big players are divesting. They're actively disinvesting from these sectors.
Price says that hard assets are important to evaluate. That's physical items that have value as opposed to paper assets like investments.
The broad US market, commodities haven't been this cheap for 60 years. So there is a grotesque mismatch between paper assets and hard assets. Hard assets are really cheap now.
Another energy expert, Cyril Vilderhoeven, says that over-reliance on renewables has caused the energy sector to become destabilized. As a result, most of the European mainland continent's energy sector is controlled by Russia. That means it can manipulate prices. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
And the energy crisis continues in China too. The governor of one hard-hit province there is calling on authorities to import more coal. China is heavily reliant on imported energy, especially coal. Coal supplies almost 60% of its energy, according to U.S. government statistics. But the Chinese regime banned coal imports from Australia last year after Australia called for an independent investigations into the origins of the CCP virus. And over the past week, power cuts have forced factories to close, households have lost power, even traffic lights have gone out. A utility company said water supplies in one region could be disrupted at any moment before apologizing for causing alarm. Goldman Sachs now estimates that over 40% of China's industrial activity is affected by the shortages, so is downgrading China's growth estimate as a result. So joining us to discuss the global energy challenges is Tracy Schuchart. She's a global materials and energy strategist with hedge fund Telemetry. Tracy, pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks very much for coming on. Looking at China, we see big banks downgrading their GDP. It wasn't so long ago that GDP numbers seem to be the be-all and end-all for the Chinese regime, right? What do you think is the fundamental reason for China's energy challenges, and just how bad do you think it could get there?
Well, I mean, first we have this. I mean, China is reeling already from the real estate fallout. In the meantime, they're grappling with the energy crisis. China's massive industrial base has actually been wrestling with sporadic power prices, jumps in power prices, and usage curbs since last March. And really, what happened is that they pledged to cut emissions, but this has been backfiring for them because energy output from renewable sources, mainly hydropower, has actually been sinking since last year. And this is leaving China forced with some hard decisions. They've had to tell factories to cut production, to halt output even during peak hours. And this has come at a really high cost, and it's slowing growth. And this is also causing ripple effects globally as it's disrupting supply chains and sparking inflation to other economies, just as we're emerging from the pandemic.
Europe is having an energy crisis as well. Do you put these down to fundamentally challenges from a lockdown-induced supply chain problems or restriction-induced supply chain problems, or is it the demand side that the liquidity, like people are blaming the added liquidity on rising prices elsewhere? Is this happening in the energy space too, or not necessarily?
I think, well, yes, I mean, it is happening. I mean, we have had demand spring back very fast, right? We had, if you look at the oil industry, for example, all of the 2020 surplus is drained and more, right? And so you do have dwindling supplies. You also have, again, investment. Nobody wants to invest in fossil fuels right now. So you're seeing, countries that just aren't producing what they used to produce after the pandemic, right? Because everybody stopped producing because we had so much supply on the market. So you're not seeing that supply come back. At the same time, you're seeing global demand rise.
Take Europe, for example. We see Poland, I believe, are springing up one of their coal mines again that have been shut down, I believe, for green reasons or climate change reasons. Looking at Europe, where they're facing a quote-unquote crisis, do you see more of this type of reversal having to happen, or what do you think is going to happen in this space?
Yes, I mean, what I think is everybody wants green transition, and although that is fantastic, the problem is the infrastructure just isn't there right now to support those really big goals that countries have, right? So they're trying to cut back on fossil fuels too quickly, and they're finding that renewables are not being able to take the place of fossil fuels, and that's really what's happening right now. Wind isn't blowing, the sun isn't shining, and Europe lets natural gas supplies during summer, for example, natural gas supplies, you're supposed to build inventory for winter, right? Well, they didn't because they're focused on renewables. This is the problem. Now this is what is happening. We're having a full-blown energy crisis, and we haven't even hit winter yet.
Wow, incredible. Finally, I want to go to the UK very quickly. We see natural gas prices skyrocketing there as well, seems to be causing real problems. But I want to touch on the knock-on effects that perhaps are harder to grasp. We see fertilizer was too expensive to produce fertilizer. We couldn't get CO2 from the fertilizer. The meat packing industry were complaining then we can't preserve the meat. Can you talk a little bit about the knock-on effects that you're kind of worried about with this type of energy crisis?
I mean, it's those types of things. Really, what I'm most worried about is food supply issues, right? With, fertilizer and things like that. We're also seeing in places they're not being able to produce ammonia or urea, right? And that's going to affect fertilizer. Then we're also seeing where some zinc smelters have had to cut production. If you have to start, cutting metals production because it's too expensive, then, that affects everything from housing to, manufacturing. So it's a very serious problem right now.
Wow, incredible. Tracy Schuchard, Hedge Fund Telemetry, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And from an energy shortage in Europe to a labor shortage in America. It seems many are in no rush to go back to work, even since the enhanced unemployment benefit scheme ended. So now the governor of New Jersey is offering a new incentive to get people back to work. He's willing to pay them a bonus of up to $500 to start. The Return and Earn program will add the bonus to an employee's first paycheck, but you got to work at least 32 hours a week to qualify. Governor Murphy has incentives for businesses too. They can get up to $10,000 per new hire. That money can cover 50% of the new employee's wages while they undergo training. Employers can get a maximum of $40,000 from the government. That money comes through the American Rescue Plan stimulus package. And if you are considering a new career path and want to help ease some of America's shortages too, a new report says people working skilled trade jobs like carpenters and electricians are pretty happy. The report says these industries now have a great opportunity to attract more talent as more people reevaluate their future. NTD's Evelyn Lee with more.
Some industries could potentially benefit from the Great Resignation. Some jobs currently seeing worker shortages, like the electrician, carpenter, and plumber trades, could have a better chance of attracting workers leaving other industries. Ira Wolf, president at Success Performance Solutions, says that one thing those jobs have to offer is more money.
The more lucrative positions, many of the more lucrative positions are really in the trades, especially plumbers, welders, HVAC tech, many of the jobs there, and you can make a really upper middle class or even sometimes an upper class living being able to do that.
Millions of U.S. workers have quit their jobs in the last few months and are reevaluating their careers. It could be a rare opportunity for employers of old-fashioned trade jobs. That's according to a new annual report by Angie. One of the benefits of these jobs could be on-the-job training. Kevin Barry says it's extensive, but people don't mind that.
Like, say you're a first-year apprentice, you start off at a lower wage. The next year you move up. Once you do your 2,000 hours, pass all your classes, you move up to a second-year apprentice, like a $4 or $5 an hour bump.
Wolf recommends employers create a better candidate experience, especially online.
We call it FCDD. If it's frustrating, confusing, disappointing, or distracting, then they're going to drop out because they have other choices.
The chief economist at Angie says that this is where people should go because demand for these workers is booming along with home improvements during the pandemic. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
And General Motors' electric vehicle brand BrightDrop is adding a second delivery van to its lineup. Verizon, in fact, is getting the entire first batch. GM says the EV410 is aimed at segments like grocery, telecom, and other service providers that need smaller vehicles. It'll start building it in Canada around the second half of 2023. BrightDrop CEO says there's big demand for electric vans, but a shortage in the market. GM itself is estimating the domestic market for package and food delivery vehicles will climb to more than $850 billion by 2025. But Ford has declared it will lead America's shift to electric vehicles. It's made massive investments in factories in Tennessee and Kentucky. The one in Tennessee they call the Blue Oval City. NTD's Faye Corder has more.
Ford declares that it will lead America's shift to electric vehicles with plans for a Tennessee mega campus and twin battery plants in Kentucky. Together with its Korean battery partner, SK Innovation, it wants to invest $11.4 billion to create 11,000 jobs.
These three plants alone will produce 1 million units worth of batteries just for Ford. We're setting ourselves up to be a leader 3 or 4 years from now with this capacity. and we'll see where it takes us.
The mega campus is called Blue Oval City. It'll be built right here in Stanton, Tennessee, where it'll produce electric F-Series pickups and advanced batteries. And the twin battery plants will be built here in Glendale, Kentucky.
It's a massive investment and for sure, great excitement. They have a pretty good chance actually to take a lead over there.
Lars Karlstrom is the founder of Italvolt, which is building the first gigafactory in Italy. He says Ford is a huge company with over 100 years of experience, and this investment will likely put them ahead of both GM and Tesla. However, the U.S. is still behind globally in the EV space.
Even if this is huge, it's not enough. I mean, they're going to need to build hundreds of these factories anyway. So it's a good start.
Rahul Harkawat is the founder of Quantum Copper, a company that works with EV batteries. He also believes Ford will lead in the electric vehicle space.
They have the brand equity, they have the capability, and they have the technical know-how. Their partnership with the battery manufacturer, I think, gives them that solid technical framework to move this whole industry forward in their favor.
Ford Executive Chair Bill Ford says this is a transformative moment where Ford will lead America's transition to electric vehicles. Tennessee is giving the companies $500 million in incentives, and Kentucky is giving them $300 million, as well as 1,500 acres of land. Faye Quarter, NTD News.
And a Wall Street Journal investigation has found that more than 130 federal judges failed to recuse themselves from cases where they had financial interests. There were nearly 700 cases where judges failed to recuse themselves between 2010 and 2018. In fact, nearly 1 in 5 judges who had declared they held stocks heard at least one case involving those stocks. Alerted to the violations, 56 judges have now ordered court clerks to notify parties in over 300 lawsuits. That means some rulings could be upended and new judges assigned to those cases. Of the cases that were heard where judges did have a conflict of interest, about 2/3 of the rulings were in their own favor. The violations breached a bedrock principle of U.S. law that no one could be a judge of their own cause. That was laid out in 1792. And customers at a big-name beauty store were visibly shocked to witness a brazen daytime robbery. Video of the heist is booming on social media. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on that story.
Look at this. They look like hustling Black Friday shoppers. Actually, they're thieves executing a brazen daylight robbery in Norwich Village, an enclave surrounded by Chicago. A customer in this Ulta beauty store took the video on Saturday, which has already been viewed over 1 million times.
Yo, this is the middle of the Ulta right now.
A spokesperson for Ulta Beauty Stores told Fox News they're cooperating with law enforcement. The Norwich Police Department says these 3 black men wearing hoodies and face masks filled their bags with perfume and got away. The department says you can send them any information you may have about these suspects. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
Terrible. Still to come this evening. Ford is recalling its Mustang Mach-E SUVs, affecting thousands of owners. What's the problem and what should owners do? And are they real or are they fake? A Russian manufacturer says these synthetic stones are so realistic they even fool the professionals. That and much more coming up on NTD Business.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
The final end. The end of mankind. The end of this wretched world. I came as a man of peace and the world bought it. Can you believe that? They even took the mark of the beast. Fools! Why did God even make human beings?
To glorify his name. But we were fools, and many will spend eternity in hell.
May God have mercy on their souls.
But fools are fools are fools. Satan loves fools, and so do I.
Welcome back. People who buy black market opioids could overdose, obviously, but not on what they think they're taking. The Drug Enforcement Administration is warning about a high number of fake prescription pills laced with fentanyl and methamphetamine. Some of the 9.5 million counterfeit pills seized this year contained at least 2 milligrams of fentanyl. That's enough to kill you. The pills are largely produced by gangs and criminal drug networks and sold as other drugs like oxycodone or Adderall. The DEA says they're widely available online and are often sold through social media. Comes as the CDC reports a record more than 93,000 drug overdose deaths in 2020. And Ford is recalling some of its 2021 Mustang Mach-E's. It says the windshields may not have been bonded properly and could separate from the vehicle during a crash. Nearly 18,000 vehicles are affected by the recall. In addition to that, Ford says more than 13,000 Mach-E's are also recalled for similar bonding concerns with its sunroof. Owners are advised to visit their dealers for reinstallation free of charge. And more information can be found at the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's website. And Apple's latest iPhone operating system has new privacy tools, including one feature that allows you to create a temporary email address. The new iOS 15 allows you to create an alternate email address that's not linked to your identity, but it still forwards emails to your regular inbox. That means you can keep your personal email private, and for tasks like creating new accounts for apps, signing up for online newsletters, or sending an email to an unknown recipient, users can use the new email address. But users must have an iCloud Plus subscription. And a mesmerizing exhibit at a Tokyo museum aims to make viewers at one with Mother Nature and is blowing minds in the process. Let's take a look.
Take a look at a mind-bending art installation that invites visitors to step inside a room of seemingly infinite live orchids. The Tokyo exhibit, entitled Floating Flower Garden, Flowers and I are of the same root, the garden and I are one, features 13,000 living orchids suspended from the ceiling on wires. As visitors make their way through, the wires raise and lower the orchids, giving the impression the garden is alive. It's the latest sensory overloading work from Team Lab, a collective which includes artists, engineers, CG animators, mathematicians, and architects creating immersive installations that meld artistry and technology.
And toy maker Lego doubled its earnings in the first 6 months of the year despite facing rising costs for freight and raw materials. It's helped by a boost in sales of colorful brick flower baguettes and kits to make Rome's Colosseum popular with adults stuck at home. Other favorites included Lego Star Wars, Lego saying it had outpaced the toy industry in all major markets during the first 6 months of 2021. Customers are also flocking to its reopened stores during the year. And the company says it would continue to bet on physical stores to attract new customers. And a gemstone maker in Russia claims its synthetic stones are so realistic they can even trick professionals into thinking they're real. NTD's Andrew Thomas takes a look.
Tyrus is a synthetic gemstone manufacturer and runs this research facility in Russia. It develops synthetic emeralds like these. The goal is to achieve an appearance that is as close to natural stones as possible.
This is the Colombian emerald. This is beryl dyed with vanadium. It has a very transparent structure and reflects light very well, and has a pure color, so the intensity of its color practically does not depend on its thickness.
Rock beryl is an inexpensive material used to manufacture the artificial emeralds. Emerald is a green variety of the mineral beryl. Beryl is crushed and poured into special containers known as autoclaves. At high temperature and pressure, beryl dissolves and emerald crystals are formed. This process is called the hydrothermal method. It takes about 1 month to develop a stone weighing from 600 to 1,000 grams. According to the company, the quality achieved can mislead even professional gemologists.
Some inexperienced gemologists simply issue a certificate that this is a natural material. They cannot find differences, but we are not proud of this. We say that we have come so close to nature that all the differences have already been erased. Although, of course, we sell everything only as synthetically grown stones.
Using a similar method, they've learned to grow rubies and sapphires. More stones are currently in development. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Incredible. That's the latest business updates for today, but you can still catch NTD Evening News with Stephanie Cox. That's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. For NTD Business, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Don't forget to catch all of our programs on TV. NTD Evening News is on every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Find your local NTD channel at ntd.com/TV.